every place, literally every single food business is different, whether it be a food truck, food trailer, restaurant, you're right. They're all going to be different. And what works for one does not necessarily work for another. And they do have their own unique story and steps of service and right. And a menu and
Right. Yeah.
distribution and right sources of where they get their food and the blah, blah, blah. Right. There's just so many different variables that are unique.
And like some restaurants, like for example, we did an episode with ATX Cuisine.
Yeah,
Who's sort of a, they're a high-end, elevated kind of restaurant, and for them to come up with a menu that traveled was very difficult.
That's another thing people are not thinking about. Well, they'll just go to go or takeout. Listen, y'all, not every place can make their menu takeout or to go. I've worked for so many restaurants where we didn't even do that because there's too many components. You can't take that to go. Right. It's not going to travel well 45 minutes in a car by the time you get it. So, that hurdle that restaurants had to go through as well of stopping and essentially, right, like reorganizing everything. That also means you have to reorganize prep, the kitchen, the flow of how things are prepped, even like if you have that set up. So now everything starts to change. And God, it's absolutely amazing what they've gone through.
Yeah. And for me, I think the biggest takeaway from all of this, and the thing I think that was the most important for me was that this industry, it's the hospitality industry, and every single person from back of house, front of house, everybody has always been it's been drilled into them from the very beginning. You always put on a smile. You always want to show your best side.
Sure.
You want to make sure that people who are coming in, whether that's dining in, sitting on the patio, picking up takeout, are greeted with a smile. Everything's going great. It's about them having a good time, all of that. And my biggest concern for the industry was because of that, when people go in to dine in, sit on the patio, get takeout, what they're seeing are a group of happy, smiling people. And so it may be really easy to not think that these people are going through one of the toughest things that this industry has ever gone through.
The toughest, I mean, by far.
Because it's their 100%. Job to not let that show.
Sure.
So for me, this was really about creating kind of a safe space where they could talk about those things without it infringing on the hospitality that they want to give to the people who are coming into their restaurant.
Yeah. Wow.
And so for me, that was the most important thing, was getting the word out that this industry is struggling to the point where, like, there are restaurants, big restaurants, not just mom and pop places that were kind of hanging on anyway, but big restaurants are closing right now because they just cannot sustain what's going on right now. And so if it meant that someone ordered in, curbside pickup one extra night a week, or tipped a little more when they went in, or went on to a restaurant's website and bought a few gift cards without really expecting to use them at all.
Exactly.
It would be a win. It would be like, okay, here's a way to sort of raise awareness of what's going on without it having to come from the people whose job it is to not let people know that this is going on. You know what I mean? And so that was really the goal with the series.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love that. You're right, because people don't get to give, vent, if you will, right? Like that's a big part of the industry where things build up. I mean, that's such a big part of it, which is why there's a lot of mental stress in the industry, alcoholism, drug addiction, right? I could go through the list, family problems, divorces, right? Relationship building. I lived it. It's for so long. It's because of that, you just, it's such an intense industry. And then, right, you want to release at the end of the night, you build up all this stuff. And especially during a pandemic, right, you're trying to maintain this, hey, we're here for the community, we're doing everything right. But meanwhile, behind, right, through the kitchen door, it's like, holy shit, we are in the worst hole imagined. Like, not even imaginable. It's worse than anything anybody could have ever imagined, right? It's just absolutely devastating.
And there's been so little help from the government.
Zero. I talk about on the podcast since we pivoted in March as well. It's been a major conversation on this podcast that gets brought up all the time. Since then, hasn't changed since March, right? It's like crazy. It's like, it really pisses me off because people, this is the thing. People are getting mad at restaurants. Well, just shut down, just close down. Listen, y'all, slow down. They want to close down, most of them. I guarantee you they have no issue. But the government's saying close down, but continue to pay rent, continue to pay your bills, continue to pay staff, continue to pay insurance, right? Continue to do everything else outgoing, but there's not going to be, we're going to limit your incoming revenue. Right. You can't do that. The government's got to say, here's this, now shut down. Otherwise, it's, of course, these restaurateurs are looking for ways they've got to look, you don't know what's behind them. They've got staff. It's a pyramid. They're at the top of that pyramid. So you're seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole iceberg underneath them of stuff and responsibilities and people's homes. But we could go down the list of things. So that frustrates me. And that's why this series, dude, is so eye-opening and so wonderful and honestly inspiring, even though it's sad to watch it. It's inspiring at the same time. And you know what's one funny thing that I noticed is that, a lot of these I'm watching ones that came out, months and months ago. Right. You still watch it today. It feels like it was just shot yesterday.